Hello, my name is Josh Olson. Welcome to my article review on Winning Isn't Everything, Corruption in Sumo Wrestling. Today I'll be presenting research by Mark Duggan and Stephen Levitt on the topic of corruption in sumo wrestling. This topic is important because it helps us to understand the role corruption plays in real-world economies. By studying the ancient tradition of sumo wrestling, which is based upon honor, we can find out a little bit more whether any institution really is safe from corruption. I will begin by discussing Mark Duggan and Stephen Levitt's research questions, discussing the source of their data, cover their statistical methodology, go over the results of their surveys, and finally conclude with my own personal thoughts. Duggan and Levitt's first research question is this: are sumo wrestling matches ever rigged? Duggan and Levitt believe that due to significant raises in both pay and status upon winning matches near the end of the tournament, there must be a large number of illegitimate matches that take place. Consider this graph, for instance. Every single time that a wrestler wins a match, he improves by 3 ranks. However, on the 8th win, a wrestler can improve by 11 ranks. That's almost 4 times as much as a normal win. Therefore, there is quite a bit of incentive to win that 8th game. The second research question is this: if there are suspected illegitimate matches, is it possible to even tell if the match was rigged or if the wrestlers were merely exerting more effort to win the larger rewards? Duggan and Levitt suspect the following. Number 1, the winner of the 8th match will almost always lose to the same opponent on the next match. This would be a form of payback to the previous loser. Number 2, match rigging will disappear during times of increased media scrutiny. The data that was collected by Duggan and Levitt came from Japanese news sources and athletic records, as well as conceptual data from interviews with wrestlers and referees. The source of this data was found in the Nakaban, Shukan Post, and the Big Book of Sumo, all respected Japanese news sources and commentaries on sumo wrestling. The dependent variable of their study was the likelihood of a wrestler to win a match while on the bubble. The bubble, in this case, is the match being observed. Now, the dependent variable is influenced by several independent variables. The following chart displays the different independent variables that affect the likelihood for wrestlers on the bubble. All of these independent variables may be quantitatively described as a 1 or a 0, with a 0 meaning no, the criteria was not met, and a 1 meaning yes, the criteria was met. For example, the third criteria down in the far left column is high media scrutiny. If there is high media scrutiny, or a 1, then you can see that there is a negative percentage or less of a chance for a wrestler on the bubble to win. As for the results, wrestlers were categorized as either clean, status unknown, or corrupt based on their reaction to the independent variables. This chart shows the excess win percentages on the bubble for wrestlers labeled as corrupt, clean, or status unknown. The column shows the opponents and the row shows the wrestlers. Even if a wrestler labeled as corrupt was to face an opponent labeled as corrupt, the one that needed the win more would be 26% more likely to make the win. If these percentages are converted to numbers, we will see that 29 of the wrestlers were labeled as corrupt, while only 14 were labeled as clean. And the final verdict? There is a strong statistical analysis showing match rigging and corruptive collaboration between wrestlers. Match rigging all but disappears during times of increased media scrutiny. Wrestlers who are victorious on the bubble lose more frequently than would be suspected the rest of the time they meet their opponents, suggesting part of their payment for throwing a match is future payment in kind. The expectations of Levitt and Duggan were completely correct. The incentive structure of promotion in sumo wrestling sets up the system for failure of integrity. In conclusion, The sumo wrestlers compromised their integrity by rigging matches in order to gain incentives from the system. Now, Duggan and Levitt were addressing problems in the economy by studying the sumo wrestlers. And I believe the same problems with the sumo wrestling system are involved in the economy as well. And the way we can eliminate those problems is by providing incentives for those who have integrity rather than those who work the system. Finally, I believe the Bible calls us to be different, and I want to end with this scripture verse. It's Proverbs 10 verse 9, and it reads, "The man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out." Reference page